if you haven't been paying attention, this guy has established himself as one of the premier NFL insiders for Fox Sports. He's the host of the weekly football show on Instagram, Why is Draymond Green Talking About Football with Jordan Schultz. I love that name. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Jordan, always great to see you. Appreciate you coming on the show greatly. I got to start with this, man. This trade permission stuff. I don't really remember this being that big of a deal. It feels like this offseason, the Rams started with Matthew Stafford. I've honestly lost track at this point of how many guys have been given permission to seek a trade. What is going on here?
Yeah, it's out of control. It's not just given permission, Ross. It's to seek a trade. It's given permission to explore a trade. Or are there other teams interested? And what it's become is the new in vogue thing to do. And what you'll notice is a lot of the players that would otherwise be released are now being given permission to seek a trade or talk to other teams. And it's funny because just getting back from Indy last week, that was one of the topics that continue to come up with clubs. Not something that they like. Very annoyed that they can't just flat out release a guy when they know very honestly and openly that the best they're going to get for someone might be a 7th round pick. They would rather just flat out release the dude, give him the opportunity to go sign elsewhere and then be done with it. But given the circumstances of the cap, the fact that free agency is upon us, guys want as many options as possible. And as a result of it, you're seeing this permission to seek a trade, and it's really become out of control. I couldn't agree more.
All right, so Stafford ended up going back to the Rams, and it never really seemed like he was going to leave. I never really thought he was going to leave. I know maybe you'll tell me, and other people will say it was close to happening, but I just didn't, for a lot of reasons. I didn't think it made sense for the Rams. I didn't think it made sense for Stafford. What about some of these more well-known guys like DK Metcalf, Trey Hendrickson? It sounds like people think those guys are much more likely to be on new teams.
Okay, so in terms of Metcalf, I would put him being traded a higher percentage than Trey Hendrickson. And the reason is because I think both Seattle and Metcalf know that this has been brewing for quite some time. It actually goes back to last year. And it's not that Metcalf isn't happy, but I think both sides are looking for a fresh start. And, DK is going to fetch a significant price. I don't know if it's going to be a 1. I don't know if it's going to be a 2 and a 4. I don't believe it's going to be a 1 and a 3. But the problem is for both him and Hendrickson is that because these guys are premium players, the team trading for them not only has to give up the asset or assets, draft capital to get the player, they then have to pay the player. And both of these guys are seeking significant contract extensions. In Metcalf's case, just turned 28. Hendrickson is 30, obviously an all-pro. I think Metcalf gets traded first. I'm not sure if Hendrickson gets traded. I talked about the Chargers being in on DK. I've heard the Raiders, Packers, among many other clubs. In Hendrickson's case, Ross, I would say that you have to get owner Mike Brown on board. These organizations are run significantly differently. In Seattle, you have John Schneider, who really has full autonomy from the owner, Jody Allen. In Cincinnati, you have Mike Brown, who he, in essence, is running the show. Duke Tobin's the GM, but he has nowhere near the type of autonomy that Schneider has in Seattle. So if you're asking me about both of those guys, I'd say there's a better chance of seeing DK get traded, and I would imagine even if both of them ultimately get dealt, that Metcalf happens first.
Talking with NFL insider Jordan Schultz, does a terrific job for Fox Sports. The Hendrickson thing is very interesting, Jordan, because it felt like after the Max Crosby contract came out, it kind of felt like the Bengals were throwing in the towel. I do not envision them giving him that type of contract. So when you say you think there's a better chance DK gets traded, do you think that the Bengals might try to play hardball with Hendrickson and make him play out this last year?
Yeah, they have been. In fact, if you actually trace Hendrickson back to last year, he already requested a trade and went nowhere. And so they have been meeting and delegating over the past few weeks. And he was in Cincinnati yesterday. He went to the facility, met with the entire organization, met with the Bengals brass, and basically talked through it because he got an offer that was significantly below market value 2 weeks ago. And I think what happened was Cincinnati really had to talk Hendrickson off a ledge, hoping that he wouldn't request a trade. And then they met yesterday, seeing if they could find common ground. They ultimately didn't. He's been a staple within that organization. He's a first-team All-Pro, but they also have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to deal with. And they still want to extend Mike Gesicki to tight end. And obviously Burrow wants all these guys back, but you can't pay everyone. And if you're the Bengals, this is not an organization flush with cash, Ross. So Hendrickson, I believe, would sign somewhere in the middle of 3 years, 85 to 90. I know he would love 100. It's not realistic. Cincinnati, all I'll say without giving you specific numbers, is nowhere near that number. In fact, I'll give you this. I don't believe Cincinnati has come over the $70 million threshold. So that tells you how far away they are. And as a result, you have to make a decision if you're the Bengals, Ross. Do you trade Trey Hendrickson, or do you simply try to find a number and go up where really you don't want to do that, knowing, again, that you have the receivers to deal with?
Right. As I said earlier in the show, Jordan, I have no sympathy. They have nobody to blame but themselves. They could have worked on any of these deals over the last couple of years and gotten ahead of this thing, gotten them done. It's interesting, though, that you mentioned Hendrickson meeting with the entire Bengals organization, because there was news out this morning that Myles Garrett requested a meeting with Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, and he declined to meet with Garrett. What, if anything, do you know about that, or even just the Myles Garrett situation, Jordan?
Well, you talked about the Bengals putting themselves in a bad position. They should have taken care of Jamar Chase when they had the chance. They should have addressed Trey Hendrickson last year. The Browns are in a similar boat with owner Jimmy Haslam. And all due respect to him, I don't know how you look at Myles Garrett and you treat him this way. This is, without question, the face of the franchise, and he has been for the better part of the last decade. He's arguably the best defensive player in football, year in and year out. And for you to refuse to meet with the guy is insane. It really is. I have no understanding of it. I have no sympathy for the Browns because, like the Bengals, they have put themselves in this position. If you're Myles Garrett, you obviously have made a lot of money and you want to win. And he has made it abundantly clear to us, Ross, that he does not believe that can happen with the Browns. So if you're the Browns, if you fast forward the situation, what are you going to accomplish by not meeting with the guy? We're going into free agency next week. We're in March. It's going to get worse and worse and worse if you don't handle this now. And it's a problem that's been festering for quite some time. So I don't get it at all. And if Myles Garrett wants a meeting, you take the meeting.
Yeah. Speaking of things I don't get, can you explain to me why the NFL still has this quote unquote, I guess they call it now the negotiating period. For a while there, we were calling it the legal tampering period. It starts Monday, but then the official league year doesn't start till Wednesday at 4 p.m. Do you understand the logic or reasoning there, Jordan?
Not particularly, Ross, but I was not ever the greatest student. I always give you problems. You're the Ivy League guy. I went to the fake Ivy League school, Occidental. I was not the best student. I don't understand it, but I'll tell you this. A lot of the deals that you're going to see come together on Wednesday and Thursday have already been set by the time we're there. In other words, Monday and Tuesday, and really this week over the weekend and going back to the combine is when a lot of the deals get set in place. And then basically what happens is a lot of players will try and shop around. They'll try to make sure this is the best team, the best number they can get. But essentially, those deals in many ways are done by Wednesday. So no, I don't understand it. But I'm not the right guy to ask. I'm not the right guy to ask that.
Well, and I've also seen, reports out there, Jordan, and you might have had a similar article about guys that are going to make more money than people expect, and you'll be surprised. That just tells me that they already know how much they're going to be getting.
Of course.
How many of these deals are more or less already done? How many deals do you think there's a pretty good idea people know who's going where for what money, but they can't obviously say anything about it yet?
Right now or come Wednesday?
Right now, and then over the weekend, Monday.
I'd say probably a quarter of the deals somewhere over the weekend. And by Monday, I'd say a third to half of the deals. Now, obviously, there's the second and third waves of free agency, the one-year deals that are much smaller. But in terms of the big contracts, the multi-year extensions, all of that will be set in stone, or much of that will be set in stone by Monday and Tuesday. Because what happens is a lot of the players and agents by this time have already met with everybody in Indianapolis. The agents have. So they have a really good understanding of the market, not only with the teams, but the type of money. And then you have a lot of players that are entering that first contract, right? So they're 25 or 26, or second contract, I should say. They want that 3-year deal so that they can hit it again by the time they're 28 or 29. And so what you're going to see is a lot of those 3-year deals, the teams want the 4-year deal so they can get the control. And we talked about Trey Hendrickson. He wants the 3-year deal, right? That's what's in vogue for many players and agents. So to answer your question again, I would say right now you probably have a quarter of them. Fast forward to the weekend, Monday, probably over a third.
What about Sam Darnold? What are you hearing, thinking in terms of?
He's going to do well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he's going to do well. I think he's going to. We just said would some guys surprise some people? I think Darnold's going to surprise some people because, Ross, if you're Sam Darnold, you have to make the decision of, do I go back to Minnesota and stay with Kevin O'Connell, who's resurrected my career, or do I look elsewhere and maybe fetch a little bit more money, knowing that it might not be as good a situation? Let's say, for example, the Raiders, right? The Raiders need a quarterback. They do not have a very good roster, but they do have a new head coach, and you do have the USC connection. I know Pete Carroll likes Sam Darnold. Does that mean he's going to sign there? Of course not. But I think he's going to make a significant amount of money. And I don't know if that's in the mid to high 30s or low 40s, but he will do very well and surprise some people. You have the cap that's gone up again. That will help him. And then you have the fact that, A, this is not a particularly strong quarterback market, and B, this is not a great quarterback class coming out. So that will help Sam Darnold.
Most likely teams there, 2 or 3 teams that maybe jump out to
Minnesota,
you for Sam?
For Darnold? I would say with Darnold, I mean, the Vikings will love him back. They're not going to be able to pay him maybe exactly what he wanted.
Right.
I know he loves it there. I know his wife loves it there, and they've had a great experience. Look at the Raiders.
Yep.
I would say those two to me make the most sense. And then you have to wonder if a team like Pittsburgh gets frisky. You know, Pittsburgh could easily bring back Justin Fields on a 1-year, $10 million deal. Or do they decide, you know what, we want to go a little bit more and pursue someone like a Sam Darnold or maybe an Aaron Rodgers? I'm not reporting that. I'm just saying the Steelers clearly believe they're a quarterback away. How do I know that? They were very much in on Matthew Stafford. And you don't go after a guy like Matthew Stafford or Sam Darnold for that matter, Ross, unless you believe your roster is good enough to win right now.
We still don't know, by the way, what Stafford's new contract is, do we? That still hasn't been reported. I'm dying to know how much less he took to stay in L.A. because I know people would have given him a lot of money elsewhere.
Yeah, so we don't know the exact numbers. What we do know, and I reported this, was he took a lot less to stay. You know, there were talks that he would have commanded 100 over 2. He's made. He'll have made by the time this contract's out, or by the time this contract is over, he'll have made well over 300 or around $300 million in his career. So clearly, it wasn't just about the money. And I had thought for about a day and a half that there was a real chance that the Raiders were going to land him. They desperately wanted him. Tom Brady loved him. But what it came down to was Stafford met with Sean McVay for quite some time, 6:37 in the morning, and they were able to find that common ground. And you kind of knew once they met and were face-to-face, those two, that it was going to happen. So, yes, he took less, but he knows that they were a play away from beating the Eagles and going on in the playoffs. That roster is really good. It's a terrific young defense. And I think Stafford ultimately decided that his best bet was staying in L.A. with arguably the best offensive coach in football.
Check him out on social media. He's at Schultz_report on Twitter. That's where I follow him. And certainly check out his show, Why is Draymond Green Talking About Football with Jordan Schultz. I would like to have seen Draymond play tight end or D end, actually.
So,
I would have liked to have seen that.
Can I give you a funny story about that?
He did, right? For a game or something? Or
he did for a game. He did a spring game at Michigan State his freshman year. And I said to him, you know, you could have easily been a tight end. I'm thinking maybe an edge rusher. You got good bend, good dip. And he said to me, you know what? The second someone punched me with the two hands, I was out. And Ross, I think as an offensive lineman, you can respect that.
Oh, I love it. Hey, I would love to have played football against Draymond Green and try to light him up. That's what makes it fun. Jordan, thanks so much for the time, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Take care.